Alright, hey everyone. Today we're looking at puzzle tiles, looking at what went right and what could be improved. So puzzle tiles is like a puzzle game, pretty basic mechanics that build off each other, and I think it didn't entirely land how I wanted, and we're going to talk about the reasons for that, I guess. But first, what went right about it? I think the pacing of the mechanics was pretty good. So the way it scaled at the start where it was really easy, like, it's very hard to mess up, and it slowly says, oh, okay, now you have to do this new mechanic, now you have to hit the light to walk on the path, right? So the rate at which it builds up is very good. And I think the way it introduces new mechanics over time, building on old ones, I think is also pretty good. Finally, the sound effects. They're like these tones, these like musical notes, and I think they turned out really well. They kind of jived with the game and the music kind of synced with them as well. And I think it just led to a very pleasant experience overall. Anyway, so the things that I think could have been improved, this is a big list here. Let's look at the graphics. They're squares, it's nothing special, right? And not that there's anything wrong with that. And I think there was an intention behind doing it that way. I just think that, when you look at a game and you see just squares, not pixel art, like squares, it's pretty unappealing. So I think that was a mistake. I think despite my whatever reasons I had at the time for doing that, I think I should have just stuck with whatever, just done some pixel art, and it probably would have helped with readability as well. Next one, the early mechanics are not well explained, they're not well kept in the player's head, right? So sometimes a player goes through the whole game and then later on they'll forget one of the earlier mechanics and how it works, and is unable to complete a level because of that, having forgotten that. So I think a system maybe to write down like a logbook what each tile actually does, and like a little example video maybe, or maybe writing on the side as you unlock a mechanic and master it, says like, oh, this tile teleports the bullet, oh, this light lights up when you hit it, right? So things like this. Another issue, the fact that the art is kind of squares, I think also led to making the levels feel very samey. Like all the levels the solutions are different, but they don't feel like it really. It kind of feels like you just hit the arrow keys and WASD keys and then you win. So I think maybe art could have helped with that, or maybe just better, more unique level design, because they look very similar, again, level to level. This is going on to the itch page now. The screenshots that you look at don't adequately convey the gameplay. So when you look at the screenshot with all these squares on it, you really don't know what's happening. Like there's no action, it's just a very static image. Whereas again with the art, you could say make a more mobile image, a more action-packed. So you look at it, you're like, oh, this is what I do, immediately you can tell. And yeah, I could have done a better job conveying that as well. Another issue with the webpage, this is, the game format itself, right, is you have to download it to play it. And that's a huge barrier to entry. Not a barrier to entry necessarily, but a lot of people, when they see that they can play a game in the web, it's easier to click and just play immediately rather than having to download and unzip and do all sorts of steps in between you and playing the game. So that was a mistake also for sure. Another thing with the art style, even if it is squares, it's very dark. Like overall the brightness is very low and it makes it kind of hard to tell what's going on, but in addition it's not interesting. And so I could have done maybe a brighter color scheme rather than the dark everywhere. It could have had very bright colors, sort of, not assaulting your eyes, but brighter colors than what it is now where it's very dark. Like you have to squint almost to even make out what's happening. So another thing, finally, is the way the lights work as a mechanic is they light up the area around them, but the light affects all the tiles underneath, whether it's a wall or it's a floor or anything. And that made it hard to tell sometimes where the actual floor ended and the wall began. Like if half was lit and half was unlit, they sort of blend together because they're so desaturated, it's very easy to mistake them for another. And that makes it harder to solve some levels. Like you don't know where you can actually walk. So I think that was another thing that could be improved. But anyway, that's all I got. Hope this was helpful.